going on, guys? Welcome to the Banish for Cost podcast. I am your host, E-HeroesForged, and I am very, very excited for this format coming up because we, in just a couple days, have Maze coming out, and we are getting the new hero support with Furnace, Crow, Voltic Thunder, all the stuff coming out. I'm very, very excited. You know, like, it sucks we're not getting Ejector and Fountain and things like that, but that's okay. We do know that's coming down the line, so I want to stay in the moment, stay in the present with Maze. So I do think in the current format that we can obviously grab some tops here and there. Now, I'm not arrogant enough to tell you that heroes are going to be top meta, that they're going to just win YCSs, they're going to take over regionals. I don't see that, because if that was the case, you would have had probably more coverage with it, and obviously heroes would be a little bit more better than they are in the current state. And I do feel that these factors will lead to a top and possibly even a win. So let's go ahead and start down the line. Number one, I think personally that heroes are the element of surprise in the room, and I do feel like no one, and I mean no one, is preparing for it. Even at my own locals, I don't think anyone prepares to see heroes because they already have the cards in the side deck to kind of beat us, and that means Droll and Nib, because I think Super Poly is more of a main deck card now, and mostly everyone's playing it, and that sucks for us. But at the same time, I can kind of play Yu-Gi-Oh! You know, like, that's kind of one thing that heroes have kind of struggled with in the past, is we've never been able to play heroes because everyone was main decking Nib and everybody was main decking Droll. And I don't see many matchups where you're going to face that. So talking about matchups, I don't see many matchups that really hurt us other than Malice. Malice kind of sucks. So now, obviously with Malice, we can play like Plasma, and that really just shuts off everything they want to do, because they can't really get into anything, especially if we have DPE, so they can't just beat over you. So everything's negated, and then everything, you know, they can't beat over you. So that kind of nips it in the butt there. But at the same time, you know, I'm not saying that heroes just dominate all these other matchups. It is a very, very hard road to get to a top, to get to a win. You know, like, it's hard enough to win locals with heroes. So I do think it is going to be very matchup dependent, and you're going to need to really, really know your deck. You're going to have to know how to pilot the deck you're playing. So if you go into a YCS, or you go into a regional, if you go into locals, or you're just going into testing, you really need to know what your inboard needs to look like and what is the easiest and safest route to get there, or consistent route to get there, because it's not going to be just, you know, you're just running test hands and they're not going to be interacting with you. Now, sometimes you will be, and you're going to be sitting there thinking, you know, you just do your Ferris, and then you do your Vion, whatever, and you're thinking, all right, they're going to imperm me here, they're going to Ash here, they're going to do this, and then you end up misplaying because you're expecting a hand trap. You need to react. You don't need to think like, oh, I need to be safe on this spot, you know, because you do know where your choke points are. So like, if you're afraid of Nib, you know the line to get to Nib. And if you don't, definitely let me know down in the comments. I can definitely show you a route where you can play around Nib, where you can get to it, and if they Nib you, cool, you already got the cards you kind of need to get into your other place. But besides that, you know, if they hit you with Imperm, they hit you with Valor or whatever, you have to know where your lines are to get to an area where you know you can set up a decent board to where you can at least survive another turn. Because I do think the one thing that heroes struggle with is turn 3. So if we're going first, they go second, break your board. Your turn 3 plays are very, very difficult because you don't have the resources to get where you need to get. So how do we kind of get around that? I do think you need to be full send. I think you need to make the board as big as possible. You need to put up as much disruption as possible. I think floodgates are heroes. That's what we are. I know we have contrast that can be an on-field negate, but I don't think that's enough, because it's not enough to really slow these decks down. You obviously saw in the YCS that this Tribricade deck, if you're playing Draco Tail, Branded, Magistus, whatever, like, the engines just eat you up. Like, a lot of and then Lunalight, like, Lunalight's the same way too. The engines are so good, they just eat through boards. And I do think our on-field negates, where they can be helpful, I do think there's choke points where that can come into play. So one contrast might be good, but I do think the play, in order to get where you want to get to really steal these game 1s, or even possibly game 3s, 2s, whatever, is you're gonna have to get the right floodgates. So kind of what I've been seeing in this format is they're very graveyard dependent. At least your top decks and a lot of your kind of rogue decks. Now, this doesn't really hurt like Dark Magician players, because, you know, like, they're mostly going to be on like Shining Sarcophagus and things like that. So they're banishing everything. So they're running shifter, so they're not even worried about their graveyard. So that's also going to be very, very matchup dependent. So kind of diving into your matchups. So with Draco Tail and Branded and like K9 and things like that, I do think that they need the graveyard. So like if we go straight into Darklaw, they're not sending Lupus. Lupus can't summon himself from the banishment. It summons himself from graveyard. So you obviously kill the Lupus play. And then if you're playing against Branded, they can't hit you with Fall into the Virtuous because they can't send from the extra deck to the graveyard. It's banished. And then even if they possibly could, and they send Albion's banished. So, or whatever they send is banished. So a lot of what their in phase kind of goes off of is what's in the graveyard. So if you shut off the graveyard, just in my opinion, I think that automatically is just going to give you a foot in the door for a victory, especially if you have 2 Darklaws, because Darklaw's effect allows you to rip a card from hand, but that's a soft once per turn. So you have to activate them back to back. So if they search for a card, you can rip 2. So that is very, very powerful. So banishing 2 out of the hand, along with having like maybe Plasma on board, like that's a really hard board for them to get over, because now they have to out the Plasma that's negating their effects on field, and then if they want their graveyard, they got to get over this. So essentially you kind of have to go full send. And then, I mean, if you get lucky, you can get DPE on board, cool. If you get a contrast on board, that's cool too, because then the contrast is really just protection for your Plasma and your Darklaw. So if they were able to use Fallen, if they were able to use like a Regeki or things like that to blow up your board, you can kind of get around it with contrast. So that's where I think contrast needs to be used, not necessarily for like if they summon Fallen of the White on the field and they use the effect, and then you're like, okay, cool, I'm gonna go ahead and negate that. I don't think that's the spot to use it. So I think strategically going into your matchups, that's kind of the area you need to be, because obviously you're seeing cards like Dimensional Fissure being played in the side decks because they're playing these matchups where they're just shutting off the graveyard. They're banishing their opponent's resources. And I do think that's where heroes can kind of thrive to kind of get in there and steal that win. Number 2, or kind of number 3, it's number 1 and 2 we're kind of put together. Number 3 is, I think you need to know your matchup, because you need to know where choke points are, because I don't think heroes alone can get through the board. Like, I know you want to have a bigger engine with your heroes, but you're going to have hand traps. You're going to have your Veilers, your Ash, your Wallace, whatever. You have to know where your opponent's choke points are as well. And so I think if you're playing Draco Tail, Magistus, Branded, whatever, I know that deck can put up a negate before they activate Branded Fusion. So your Ash is going to be kind of wasted on that negate. So I would probably recommend, if you would probably want to hold on to it. So like if they go to do like Flame, Sting, whatever, if they activate that, then you can Ash, and then so now they have to waste that negate along with the trap card. So I think maybe that's where you go. You can kind of do a trade-off 2 for 1, and yeah, they're going to be negating something on your field, but you want to try to bait that flame. So hopefully you have enough engine where you can do that, because once they go full combo, it's very, very hard to break their board. So making sure you have the right engine pieces in place to do that is going to be where you're going to need to excel with that matchup. Now, I'm not a student of the game as far as like Tri-Brigade Yummy, but I do know the two synchronize very, very well, and that'll be more research I will be able to put into another video. But I don't necessarily think, like, I'm going to a regional, so that's not what I'm really prepping for. For a regional, I'm more prepping for the higher tier rogue decks and lower tier meta decks. So I think like Luna Light, Vanquish Soul K9, there'll probably be some Yummy in there. You're definitely going to see Branded. So it's just seeing decks like my luck, I'm going to play Rescue Ace every round and just lose because I have had such bad matchups against Rescue Ace. I don't know why, but I do think your matchups are going to be what's dependent on you winning. So really make sure you know what your opponent's cards do along with yours. But number one, making sure you know what your cards are. So going into that, I do think, sadly, while being an excellent pilot is very, very good, knowing your opponent's cards are very good, you're going to need a little luck. So the reason I say you need a little luck is because heroes, they're just a deck that bricks. And there hasn't been a real deck list that's come out that's kind of avoided the bricks. So kind of what I've been going into to kind of help out with the bricks, and I talked about it in my last deck profile. You can definitely check that out. My list is a little different from that list, but it has the same concept because I'm still playing all of the power spells. You know, we still play 3 Hero Lives, we still play 3 Fusion Destiny, we still play 3 Evil Assault, we play 3 Furnace, 3 Ferris. Like, we have cards that can get cards out of your hand, and I think that is the main killer of a hero deck. Is the hand is cloggy. You know, you might have, for instance, you may have 3 starters and then 2 bricks, you know, or you might, it's happened. Like, I have been that hero player where I've drawn plasma, I've drawn all my Destiny heroes, like plasma, 3 malicious, and denier, and you've just been screwed. Like, sadly, that can happen. 9 times out, like, I'm playing a 60 card deck, so 9 times out of 10 that does not happen. Usually, if I draw a brick, I'm drawing malicious, and then I'm drawing a way to get it out of my hand. So another thing, especially if you're going second, is you're playing Forbidden Droplet, because if you go into your plays and then they hit you with flame or something like that, obviously you chain Droplet and you can get it off the field, so it's not negated. And then obviously you can get a card out of your hand to negate something else on field. So if you have malicious in your hand, you can get rid of it. So, and there's other ways to kind of recycle cards. So if you have Furnace in your opening hand, then I would say you can definitely get rid of it, because you can obviously go back and search it again. So it's just knowing the limitations of your deck. Like, what is the baseline? What can I get rid of in order to set up a board to kind of get my opponent off what they're doing, because they're going to be able to recur. They're going to be able to get my stuff off the field. How can I get enough on board? Obviously, heroes want to end the game. You know, I do think that heroes need to be, that's why I keep kind of saying full send, because it needs to be all gas. I think you need to we can put enough beating on the field to get over these decks, and I think you ought to push for that. Now, you want to do it safely. You don't want to just go full send and then they negate your shit, or they just banish the one card you had to get everything off the field. So kind of what I've been looking at is Malicious Bane, and I do have the hero. Obviously, I said Evil Assault. We got the Evil Hero package in our deck. Like, going second, like, that is such a good card that it can't be destroyed by battle or card effects, and it just nukes the field. And if your opponent has the waste and a gate on it, then so be it. Like, if you can get into that first, like, that's perfectly fine. Go into it, try to nuke their field, make them waste and negate, and then if they can't negate it, bye. You're blowing up their whole board. So then obviously you're able to go full send at that point. So then it doesn't matter really what's in the back row. You can get to what you need to get to, especially if we get enough cards in the graveyard. We have enough to full send, and that's a really exciting feeling. And I'm very, very excited for where heroes are going in the direction that we can get to. The only issue, that, not to kind of rain on this parade, is because heroes lock you into heroes. And it's not just that heroes lock you into that, it's that, like, Fusion Destiny, okay? I talk bad about this card all the time. I love the card, I do. I think it's a really, really good card, but I think it's a really, really bad hero mechanic. I strongly dislike that it locks you into darks. I don't like that at all. I think shutting you off from half your combo just isn't right, because if I go into Fusion Destiny, I cannot get to Shining. I can't get to it. There's no way. And unless you magically draw into your favorite contact, but then you need Flame Wingman and whatever. So, like, you're just screwed, you know, like, so it is. I mean, it is what it is. You know, you play the cards that you're dealt, but sadly, you got to have Fusion Destiny, because you have obviously all your Destiny heroes. That's probably the best card you get them out your hand, especially now that you have 3 Furnace, because now you can send, like, let's say I already have Malicious in hand along with Fusion Destiny. I can send Denier, and then I can send Furnace because it's a level 6 or higher. So it works out very, very well with each other. Like, that kind of brought it together. Now you lose the effect of Furnace to kind of summon itself back, because it locks you into dark hero monsters, but it is what it is, you know. So it's kind of a necessary evil, if I had to kind of harp on something. But that's kind of where my direction is for heroes. I really hope I laid out a bunch of positives rather than some of the negatives, because obviously playing heroes, you're gonna take a chance. Like, I do think you know, like, I'm a hero guy, but I do think you're coping if you think that heroes are just the top tier meta, like, we can just beat anything, whatever. No, it takes a lot of skill, it takes a lot of luck, it takes a lot of strategy, and you need to be consistent on your approach. So do I think heroes are top meta? No. Do I think heroes can get a top at a regional? Do I believe they can contend at a YCS? Sure. I mean, I think any deck can do it. I mean, just last year we saw Fire King, win Orlando. Now Fire King is much different than heroes, but it was very, very lucky and was very, very pilot dependent. That pilot was excellent at what he did. So a lot of these decks can contend. So obviously, you got the surprise factor, because no one's going into a matchup thinking they're going to play heroes. And when they do, I've even had guys have to reread heroes because they just don't know what they do. And if they don't know what they're doing, then they have no idea what your choke points are. Now, once you go full combo, they might be able to figure it out. Maybe it depends on how good the pilot is. But I do think we have a chance, y'all. And I truly believe in the deck. I'm bringing it to the Mississippi Regional this coming weekend, and I will be posting results of that, whether they're good or bad. The deck will perform as I think it will. I don't think it is going to perform any better or any worse. It's going to perform exactly the way I built it. I know that for sure because it's how I've been playtesting it. Every time I draw a hand that I think I can't play out of, you reassess, you don't get down, and you just play. It's one play at a time. I used to have an analogy when I played baseball was you had to bury your bad decisions, bury your bad plays. So what I used to do is, which you don't want to do this in a Yu-Gi-Oh room, but what I used to do was when I come off the mound and I'd get to the dugout, I used to go and I used to have this bucket of sand, and I used to take a scoop out, take a baseball, put it in, bury it. And what I used to go off with that is if I dwell on my mistakes, I'm going to keep making mistakes. You have to move on. So if you get to a game 1 and you make a mistake that really cost you, you need to reassess, think about what you did, and move on. Because if you sit there and dwell on it, all you're going to do is keep making mistakes. Be positive, go in confident, and I promise the results will follow. I trust in you guys. I think you guys are more than capable of going to a regional and winning, topping, going to a YCS and just doing your thing. If you love the deck, play the deck. Now, will you always have the results? No, I promise you, you will fail. But the one thing people say about people that fail is at least you tried. Because if you just have the mindset that I can't do this, then you're right. And if you say you can do this, you're also right. So really sit back and think about that before you start second guessing yourself on what you want to play, what you want to do. So with that, I'd like to just leave you with that positive note. I really hope you guys enjoyed this message I have about heroes and kind of where we can get to as a hero society. And not just with heroes, it can be with any deck. And whether you're playing Cyber Dragon, Dark Magician, Blue Eyes, it doesn't matter. If you believe in the deck, if you're a good enough pilot, if you're consistent, you know what you're doing, I definitely think you can get wins. I definitely think Yu-Gi-Oh can be this fun thing where it's not all about the meta decks. Now, with that, that's all I have for you guys today. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any feedback for me as far as heroes or any other kind of topic you want to hear on this channel, definitely let me know. I cannot wait to read the comments. I respond to everyone. I hope you guys have a great day. Heroes best deck.